Hey everyone, it's Katie from Bobby Hair Studio, and today I'm going to show you how to make a blonde even blonder and in the most safe way possible. I'm starting off with using K18 on her hair, and the reason why I'm using this is because I know from personal experience that this stuff is the best stuff to make sure that any hair or any bleaching that's going to happen to the hair, it's going to be done as safely as possible and you're going to get as minimal breakage as possible. And I love Olaplex, and I still use Olaplex to this day, but I do prefer K18 for a high risk appointment. So I'm starting off by doing step one, and that's wetting down her hair and then combing it through, and then using K18, the mist spray, and I'm combing that through as well. And after about 4 minutes, it starts to activate. So now I'm gonna go ahead and comb her through, and what I actually notice about K18 is that once I put it in, it actually makes a lot of my blondes easier to comb through while I'm applying their color and doing their service. So if I do have a tangly client, I do ask them if they would prefer K18 on their service, because it is a cost added on to their service. I only add like $25 or $30 depending on how much K18 I use, but it's actually really helpful and makes it a much speedier service for me because it is super slippy into the hair, so it's easier to apply. And now I'm starting with applying her root touch-up. So I'm gonna do this step first because her roots have the longest way to go. Her blonde ends are already lifted, and that's why this is such a high risk appointment, is because there's so much risk for breakage when you already have someone lifted to a level 10 and they have some staining, which means you need to lift it more, but it's already at that level 10. So it means it has almost no wiggle room for lifting. And if you guys haven't seen any of my bleach roots videos, I have tons of those. Please go check them out if you haven't already. There's a lot of tips on how to do your bleach roots in a safe and effective and efficient way. So make sure that you do that. Also, remember to subscribe to my channel. If you have learned anything from me, it really, really helps me out. So I am applying her bleach root, and today I'm using 20 volume. And then once I'm done that, I'm gonna have a separate mixture up for her ends and mids for when she's almost done applying, because I don't wanna keep the ends and the mids on for very long. And because the K18 is applied everywhere, her roots are safe, her mids are pretty safe, and her ends are pretty safe as well. And you can see that I'm just finishing up here, and what I'm actually doing is I'm going on to any little old banding that I may have, because guess what? Sometimes hairdressers mess up. And I did mess up last time a little bit because I applied on a little bit too dry of a mixture around her ears because I wanted it to be a little bit speedier, but it dried out a little bit too fast, so that caused a little bit of banding. So what I'm doing actually is, before I apply the secondary mixture to her mids and ends, is I'm going through and looking for any little bands that I can apply on a 7 volume and Blonde Me, so that that can just bump it up a little bit and even everything out before we do the next mixture. As I'm thinking about it right now, I think it is a good opportunity to discuss that hair isn't perfect and it doesn't always end out being perfect, and having the expectation on your stylist that it's going to have a 100% perfect result is unrealistic. Because I make mistakes, we all make mistakes, and even in your daily job, I'm sure that there are times when you've made a minor mistake, but they're always fixable. And I find that my clients are always just very happy to hear when I want to make sure that their hair is perfect. So if there is any little issues, I do bring it forth and I tell them about that. I told her about that last time when there was a little bit of banding behind her ear. I said, hey, this part isn't as light as the rest, and I just want you to know that, so I can fix it today or I can fix it next time. And I gave her the option. And she trusts me a lot because I tell her when something goes wrong or when something isn't perfect. And then she knows that I've seen it, and she doesn't go home and look at her hair and say, oh my God, hairdresser didn't see that. That's ridiculous. I'm never going back to her again. Because I did see it. So I bring it up and I let her know that I will be fixing that, and it will be free of charge. All of my fixes always are. And they're usually just something small like that, just putting a little bit of extra time on that area next time I go through it, or doing a little bit of a toner touch up. Either way, hairdressers mess up, and if you are a hairdresser, let your clients know when you've messed up and they'll trust you more and they'll let you fix it. Now her roots are almost done processing. You can see a little bit of a yellow hue on there still, which means they have another probably 20 minutes to go, honestly, for how long this client takes to lift. So I am going to leave that on, and you can see the color that she has in her hair is almost like a beautiful rose gold because we did a pink tone last time, but now we're ready to go back to a platinum blonde. So that's what we're actually aiming for today. And the reason why this hair is a little bit darker is because when you do try out new fun toners and they're a level darker, is that kind of stains the hair. So if you go white and you want to try anything else, going back to white can be a little bit hard and a little bit damaging on your hair. So keep that in mind. When you go white, there ain't no going back. So now that we have a 20 volume on her roots and that's almost done processing, I'm gonna mix together in the bowl a bit of Blonde Me and a lot of the clay, and then I'm going to put in a whole ton of, I think this is 20 volume, it might be 7 volume, but I'm putting in a ton of developer. And what happens when you put in more developer than is necessary is that there's a much slower lift and it's a lot more watered down, so the actual lightener powder isn't as effective. But that's exactly what we want here, is we want something super, super gentle to just budge that color out and to open up the cuticle of the hair enough to push out any old toners to show back what we used to have, which was a perfect level 10 lift. Now, anytime you do put any toners that are lower than a level 10 on a level 10, there will still be minor staining. And I don't expect to get an actual perfect level 10 lift. It'll probably be a little bit more yellowy than I expect, and that's okay. And what I'm actually going to do in there is I'm going to add in a bit of Cool Additive, and that's a product by Schwarzkopf. I love it. I do add it to some of my lighteners for any of my clients who have very stubborn orange tones in their hair. And when you're trying to lift out an old toner and there's some orange residue in there, this Cool Additive can help it. Now, only a little bit is necessary in each bowl. You should not use half a bottle of Cool Additive. It looks like one of those bottles that you would just use half a bottle of at a time. You use a tiny squirt, just like this. This is actually a pretty big squirt, but I've mixed up a massive bowl of product. So in a normal scoop of product, I'd mix about a 1 to 2 inch line of Cool Additive, because otherwise it might be a little bit too strong. And when something is too strong, it can kind of take over the power of the bowl and kind of maybe dilute the power of your lightener. So be careful with Cool Additive. You only need a little bit at a time. I forgot to mention earlier, I am so sorry about the quality of this video. This is actually from a live that I was doing on my TikTok. Sometimes I do that. If you follow me on TikTok, you'll see that I will just do a full process from start to finish right on live, and everybody can see it and they're all commenting, and sometimes we chat with people on live while we do this. But of course my clients always consent to going on live when they do, and if they don't want to, we don't go on live. But that's the reason why the footage quality is not super great, is because this is pulled from my TikTok live archives. So I hope you guys still enjoy the video, and if you learned something, please let me know down in the comments. And as always, your support is always appreciated, whether you like or subscribe or comment or follow us on Instagram. Everything is super appreciated. So this method can be used on basically anybody who has a global bleach out. I wouldn't recommend this method on someone who has something like a balayage, where some of their brown colors and blonde colors are mixed in, because if you put lightener on like brown hair or virgin hair, it's going to bump it, and this is going to lift it, and then you're going to get orange everywhere. Unless you are able to perfectly apply to only the blonde areas and not touch the brunette areas, I wouldn't use this on a balayage. So here she's done application, and we're just checking every few minutes to see how her processing is going. It can be a little bit hard to tell, especially when you have something like Cool Additive in there, because it kind of gets soaked up by the hair, and you can tell what area is actually fresher. On the front, I most recently applied it because it's still a little bit more bluer than what's in the back, so keep that in mind. And now it's time to rinse her out. I'm still going to let the front process a little bit, but the back is ready, so I'm going to rinse that out as effectively as I can without touching the front. Now the front has caught up, so I've rinsed out everything. And it's important to know that when you start with the back, it's easy to rinse out just the back only, because then you can put the front pieces of her hair on the sides of the bowl, or you can clip them out of the way. But that's another reason why I always like to start with the back when I'm doing my client's hair, and I don't know what the timing will be like, because I can always push the front out of the way and let it keep processing. And now I'm pre-toning her, and I'm using Fenola's purple and blue shampoo because she has yellow and orangey tones in her hair, and that's going to help pre-tone a little bit of that brass out of her hair before I do my actual toner. Because I like to do this on my level 10 blonde because I'd rather do this little bit of pre-toning rather than put more ash in my formula and make it a darker tone just for the sake of I didn't want to pre-tone. It does take a little bit more time, but it actually ends up resulting in a lighter color overall. After a few minutes of that, she's done and I'm ready to rinse her out, and I'm going to do the K18 step 2 before I do my actual toner. So I don't put in any conditioner, by the way, before I do K18. I just shampoo out and then I do the step 2. K18 Step 2 mask is actually super potent, so this is all I'll need for her entire head. It's going to go into her cortex and repair while I go mix up my toner, and I can put my toner on top of it. So today I'm using Schwarzkopf Vibrance, and I'm mixing together 9.5 1 and 9.5 2 1. So those are both ashy tones because she does have a lot of warmth in her hair. Normally I do put in a gold color in my client's hair formula as well, but today because she has that color correction blonde, which has a little bit more of that oranginess to it, I'm only using ash tones. And I am starting with the ends of her hair. It's just because the ends have a little bit more of that orangey color to them, and her roots are pretty light and fresh, so they don't need as long with the toner on them. So I'm applying everywhere, and you'll get to see how it works pretty quickly, and this is the most amazing toner, honestly. I love it so much for my white blondes because it works efficiently and it keeps her really, really bright and still really shiny. Now that she's sat for a couple minutes, you can see how well that toner applied into her roots. And sometimes with a brand new root, it looks a little bit icier and cooler than everything else does. And that's okay because that all blends together when it dries. That's something I really like about Schwarzkopf is sometimes it looks crazy different when it's wet and when it's in the sink versus when it's dry and it's all styled. Everything blends together and it looks really beautiful. And again, like the K18 step says, I've only washed it and then I'm towel drying and I'm applying K18 mask to the hair and some styling products. We're gonna leave that in and blow dry her and style her. So here is her end result. She's super, super soft, very shiny. We had no breakage. And normally if we didn't have any kind of repair treatment while we were doing her service, this would have all broken off. I can guarantee you that. She has very fine natural hair, but she's had no breakage. Her ends still feel really soft. We didn't really give her much of a cut, just a little bit of a dusting. And she's super shiny and very soft and a lot more blended out now. I know there's a little bit of color difference between the ends and the top, and that's okay. No hair is perfect, and we should stop expecting it to be perfect. But I'm really, really happy with this result. So is my client, and I think this is a realistic expectation for the end of a color correcting service because her hair is gorgeous. It's super shiny, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming all the way to the end of the video here. Remember to subscribe and turn on your notifications when you want to see more tutorials of mine. And remember to follow us on Instagram at Bobby Hair Studio and at vancity.blonde. Thanks guys. Have a great night.